we all know the story. God created the world, and everything begins in Genesis 1. But what if I told you that's not the full story? What if there's a crucial piece of the puzzle that's been hiding in plain sight for centuries? A figure whose role in creation challenges everything we've been taught. It may sound far-fetched, but the Bible itself hints at this idea. There's a figure who claims to have existed before creation, witnessing it all. And her name is Wisdom. This mysterious woman, called Chokmah in Hebrew, might just change the way you understand not only creation but also the nature of God and the universe. So let's explore this hidden piece of the puzzle, this story that's been overlooked, intentionally or not, for centuries. Why is she overlooked? And what role does she play in creation? And how does her presence reshape our understanding of God, creation, and the divine? Most of us think that everything starts with Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But there's another story buried in the Bible, and it's right there in Proverbs 8. The passage introduces us to Wisdom, who claims to have been with God from the very beginning before the creation of the world. Here's what she says: "The Lord brought me forth as the first of his works, before his deeds of old. I was formed long ages ago, at the very beginning, when the world came to be." Proverbs 8:22-23. These verses are profound because they suggest that Wisdom wasn't merely created after the fact. No, she was brought forth as the very first of God's creations before light, before water, before land, and before the existence of the universe as we know it. Wisdom isn't just an abstract concept here. In Proverbs 8, she speaks in the first person, claiming an active role in creation. "I was there when he set the heavens in place, when he marked out the horizon on the face of the deep." Proverbs 8:27. If you think this sounds different from the Genesis account, you're right. The Genesis creation story focuses on God speaking the world into existence, but Proverbs 8 reveals something deeper. Wisdom was there, alongside God, witnessing the formation of the cosmos. But here's the kicker: Wisdom wasn't just a passive observer. She was there before his deeds of old, and she was brought forth as a collaborator in the creative process. This revelation changes everything. Was creation truly just God speaking things into existence? Or was it a collaborative act, a divine partnership between God and Wisdom? And the implications of Wisdom's presence before creation are huge, especially for mainstream theology. For thousands of years, theology is focused on God as a singular, masculine entity, God the Father, the Creator. But Proverbs 8 challenges this view. Wisdom is personified as a woman with agency, a voice, and a presence that predates the entire universe. And yet she's been sidelined in traditional interpretations, reduced to a metaphor or an abstract concept. But why? Why would the Bible give such prominence to a feminine figure at the very beginning of creation if she didn't matter? Too, if Wisdom was involved in creation, what does that mean for the traditional view of God as the sole creator? And what does it mean for the patriarchal lens through which we've interpreted creation stories for millennia? The erasure of Wisdom from mainstream theology speaks to a larger issue: the sidelining of the feminine in religious traditions. By focusing solely on God as a masculine figure, we've ignored the possibility that creation was a cooperative act, one that involved both masculine and feminine forces. This revelation challenges the idea of a singular, all-powerful God who speaks reality into being. Instead, it paints a picture of creation as a balanced act, a divine partnership where both masculine and feminine elements played a fundamental role. But there's more to this story. The creation story in Genesis isn't the oldest account of how the universe came to be. In fact, it borrows heavily from older traditions, and those traditions reveal something surprising about creation itself. Before there was light, land, or life, there was chaos, dark, wild, untamed chaos. And this chaos wasn't just a backdrop to creation, it was the enemy that had to be defeated. In the ancient Near East, the idea of primordial waters was central to creation myths. These waters weren't calm seas waiting for God to organize them. They were violent, destructive forces that threatened to overwhelm existence. Take the Babylonian creation story, for example. In the Enuma Elish, the god Marduk slays Tiamat, a cosmic sea dragon who embodies chaos. He then uses her body to create the heavens and the earth. Sound familiar? This concept of chaos as a primordial force is reflected in the Bible as well, especially in Psalm 74. It was you who split open the sea. By your power, you broke the heads of the monster in the waters. This isn't the serene creation story of Genesis 1, where God calmly speaks things into existence. This is warfare. The Bible is borrowing from these older traditions where creation was an act of violence against chaos, not peace. And this isn't an isolated instance. The Psalms, Isaiah, and Job all tell stories of God battling chaos to bring about creation. In these accounts, creation wasn't just a matter of speaking the word, it was a battle against chaos, personified by monsters like Leviathan. If even Genesis hints at this, when it says, "The earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep," Genesis 1:2. That word deep in Hebrew is Tam, which is linguistically connected to Tiamat, the chaos dragon of Babylonian myth. This idea that creation wasn't a one-time event, but an ongoing battle against chaos, is reflected throughout the Bible. Psalm 74 suggests that God continually battles the forces of chaos to maintain order in the world. Creation in these texts is an ongoing struggle, a constant battle to keep the universe from slipping back into disorder. And this raises a profound question. If creation is an ongoing battle, could chaos still be at work in the world today? Is the struggle between order and disorder still unfolding, even in ways we don't see? The ancient understanding of chaos as an active force in the world complicates our view of creation and challenges the God's work was done once He spoke the universe into being. The presence of wisdom before creation isn't the only clue that the feminine played a role in the act of creation. So there's another figure in Jewish mysticism that you've probably never heard of in mainstream religious settings, Shekinah. Shekinah represents the divine presence in Jewish mysticism, often depicted as feminine. She's not just a shadow or an abstract idea. In the Zohar, one of the central texts of Jewish Kabbalistic thought, Shekinah is described as the bride of God, an active force working alongside Him. Shekinah's presence introduces the idea of balance between the masculine and feminine aspects of the divine. Creation is no longer just about a solitary God acting alone, but about a partnership between the masculine and feminine forces of the universe. This concept of divine femininity isn't unique to the Zohar. If we look back to ancient Israelite religion, there's evidence that God may have once had a partner, Asherah. Archaeological findings, including inscriptions and figurines, suggest that Asherah was worshipped alongside Yahweh in ancient Israel. Inscriptions from Kintillet Adrud, a site in the Sinai Peninsula, refer to Yahweh and his Asherah. But why isn't Ashera mentioned in the Bible? Because later biblical writers and editors intentionally erased her. The worship of Asherah was condemned as idolatry in texts, like 2 Kings 23. But before that, she was a prominent figure in the religious life of ancient Israel. The erasure of Asherah and the sidelining of Shekinah reflect a larger trend in the development of monotheism, suppression of the feminine aspect of the divine. By removing these feminine figures from the tradition, the biblical narrative reduces God to a solely masculine figure. But when we include these suppressed feminine figures, the creation story becomes much richer. It's no longer about a distant, transcendent God who acts alone. It's about a divine partnership, a balance between masculine and feminine forces, transcendent and immanent, working together to create and sustain the universe. If you thought the story of creation was radical, wait until you hear about the Gnostic perspective. According to Gnostic teachings, the God of Genesis might not be the supreme creator at all. In fact, he might be something far more unsettling, a demiurge, a lower, flawed being responsible for creating the material world. The Gnostics, an early Christian sect, believed that there was a higher, unknowable God far beyond anything we can imagine, a God of pure spirit and light. But the material world that was created by the demiurge, a lesser, ignorant deity who thought he was the one true God. This flawed being, according to Gnosticism, is none other than the God of the Old Testament and the serpent in the Garden of Eden. In Gnostic thought, the serpent wasn't the villain. He was the hero, trying to awaken humanity to the truth. The Apocryphon of John, one of the key Gnostic texts, tells us how this all happened. Sophia, one of the divine beings from the higher realms, wanted to create something without the consent of the true God. But what she created was malformed and imperfect, the demiurge. In a panic, she cast him into the lower realms, and this creature, thinking he was the only divine being in existence, started to fashion a material universe. His arrogance knew no bounds. He declared, "I am God, and there is no other God besides me," Isaiah 45:5. According to the Gnostics, the God of the Old Testament wasn't the benevolent, all-knowing creator we've been taught to believe in. He was a flawed, ignorant being who created a broken material world, a world filled with suffering, chaos, and decay. This world, according to Gnosticism, is a prison designed to trap souls in the material realm, keeping them from ascending to the higher spiritual reality. So where does that leave us? If the God of the Old Testament is the demiurge, a deceiver, then everything about the traditional Judeo-Christian narrative gets turned upside down. The commandments, the laws, the very structure of society, are they part of a divine plan? Or are they part of the demiurge's prison, designed to keep us from true freedom? For the Gnostics, the answer was clear. The material world was a flawed creation, and our spirits, which come from the higher realms, are trapped here, yearning to return to the divine. According to Gnosticism, our purpose isn't to follow the rules laid down by the false god. Instead, it's to transcend this broken material world and seek liberation through knowledge gnosis. This radical reimagining of the creation story challenges everything we've been taught about God, creation, and our place in the universe. It suggests that the world we live and the bodies we inhabit, the systems we interact with, are all part of the demiurge's flawed creation. And our spirits, they come from the higher realms, from the true God, and they're trapped here, yearning to return to the divine source. And here's where Sophia comes back into the story. In Gnostic tradition, Sophia's fall wasn't just a mistake. It was the catalyst for the creation of the material world. But Sophia didn't give up after her fall. She repented, and in her repentance, she sought to guide humanity back to the light. Sophia becomes the catalyst for our awakening, whispering to those who seek knowledge, offering a way out of the prison of material existence. This is why the Gnostics saw knowledge gnosis as the key to salvation. It wasn't through following the laws of the demiurge, but through understanding the truth of our divine spark, the part of us that comes from the higher spiritual realms. Sophia's story is a story of redemption. Through her suffering and error, she becomes the key to our awakening. And that, perhaps, is the most powerful part of this entire narrative. We too can awaken. We too can rise above the chaos and ignorance of this material world and return to the divine source from which we came. So what does all of this mean for our understanding of creation, God, and the universe? The traditional narrative of creation, as presented in Genesis, is just one version of the story. When we dig deeper into the Bible and other ancient texts, we find a much richer, more complex understanding of how the universe came to be. Wisdom, Shekinah, Asherah, these feminine figures were crucial to the act of creation, yet they've been suppressed or ignored in mainstream theology. Their presence challenges the patriarchal view of creation as a solitary act of masculine power. Instead, creation becomes a cooperative, balanced act, involving both masculine and feminine forces. And Gnostic teachings push this idea even further, suggesting that the God of the Old Testament may not be the true creator at all. Instead, they present a vision of the universe as a flawed creation ruled by a lesser, ignorant being, the demiurge. In this view, salvation comes not from following the rules of the demiurge, but from seeking knowledge and awakening to the truth of our divine origin. These ideas have sparked debate for centuries, and they continue to challenge the way we think about the nature of God, creation, and our place in the universe. So whether you find them thought-provoking or unsettling, one thing is clear. The story of creation is much more complicated and much more intriguing than we've been taught. Thank you for watching and engaging with this exploration of the hidden story of creation. If this video made you think differently about the creation story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into fascinating topics. See you in the next video, and may wisdom guide you on your journey.